Welcome to the Sassy CEO podcast. I am your host, Paula Bailey, and in this episode, I am talking all about those sneaky moments in the business journey where you wake up feeling like, I should be further along right now. I've been working so hard, I thought I'd be further along. Now, this topic is super important for business owners to hear because ultimately you know that this thought process doesn't help you move forward. In fact, it usually keeps you stuck and on an emotional roller coaster. So you need to listen to this so it can help you add some new tools. And I'm not talking about fancy new softwares or anything like that. I'm talking about genuine tools that you can use in your own personal toolbox to help you move past feeling stuck and being on that emotional roller coaster of failure. So in this episode, I want to help you unpack this unresourceful state, and I want to help you insert tools like my Sassy CEO Roadmap Framework to help you accelerate faster. Now, don't forget, if you'd like to access great, amazing tools to help you grow your business, don't forget also, if you head over to www.sassyceo.com.au/gift, you can download a strategic planning framework, or you can even take our business scorecard to score your business and how you're going right now. So head over there. But for now, let's get straight into the episode. Welcome back, amazing one. Episode 2 of the Sassy CEO podcast. I'm super excited to talk about today's topic. You know, those times when you wake up or you find yourself stopping in the day and you go, I should be further along in business right now. It's that frustrating moment where you catch yourself and you start to unravel this story. And I feel like I really wanted to talk about this topic because it's such a common theme after thousands and thousands of hours of coaching women in business, facilitating business development workshops, developing business strategic plans with them. It's always one that seems to pop up at least once along the journey of transformation for the business owner. That whole concept of I'm frustrated. I thought I'd be further along by now. I wish I was further along. And because it's such a big theme, you know, it's something that I want to promise myself for this podcast, that we talk about things that are actually happening so that we can work through them together and move you forward. So it doesn't take an Einstein to work out that this is a very, very debilitating place to be. You know, comparing yourself to others is often a big trigger for why you feel like this. So maybe you're comparing yourself to other women in business or other people in business. You're asking yourself, how are they generating the revenue that they're generating? How do they make it seem so easy? How are they getting the results? I'm working so hard over here. You know, it ends up being a complete pity party usually. Or you compare yourself to friends who aren't in business, which is even more dangerous because you're really not comparing apples with apples, but you look at someone on Facebook, maybe it's someone you went to school with or an old friend that you haven't seen for a long time because you're working so hard in business, and they're married now and they're having their next baby and they've had, they own their house, they've got investment properties. It's something that I seem to get coming up a lot with clients, is like seeing other people, you know, invest and use their money in other ways, whereas you're putting all your money into your business. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that and your mindset around what your investments in business at another episode. But for now, let's just take it from that point where you're sat there, you're comparing yourself, and you know that this is not a constructive place to be. Maybe in the moment you don't, but if you're really mindful and very aware of yourself, it is really not a constructive place for you to be. So in this episode, I want us to just go through unpacking that state of being when you find yourself going into that I should be further along story right now. Let's unpack that and have a quick look at that. And then I want to give you the framework for creating your very own roadmap. So using this state to flip it, create your roadmap to accelerate yourself forward. So the first thing to unpack this state of being is to really know yourself. And I say this across the board. I mean, there is no better investment of your time in business, I believe, is actually understanding yourself and knowing yourself. And this is about identifying your patterns. It's about seeing the things that you do and maybe then linking it up with things that trigger you. And things that I see commonly that will trigger women in business is fatigue. So not looking after yourself. Maybe you're not eating properly, you're not hydrated, you're not sleeping well, you've got an overwhelming to-do list, you've got no structure in how you're working, you don't have any plan going on. And, all these things lead you to this place of like busy brain, busy mind. And that's usually where some really unresourceful patterns will start to emerge. So asking yourself questions, taking a moment to stop. And in this episode, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions along the way. Might be worthwhile pausing, jotting down your answers and then coming back to me. Up to you how you want to use the episode. But the first question I want you to think about is, just taking a look at your own tendencies. Are you someone who tends to worry about what other people think of you? Are you someone who tends to get caught up in comparing? And here's a really interesting question. Are you competitive? I used to believe I wasn't competitive. I spent many, many years, I actually remember saying, oh, I'm not really that competitive. And deep down, I actually am really, really competitive. And I think at the time, I believed that maybe being competitive wasn't such a great thing. It was maybe as a woman or something like that, I shouldn't be that competitive. But I am actually really competitive. It's just that over the years, I've learned to use that and harness that competitive nature to be more resourceful, to help me achieve what I want. Am I perfect at that? Hell no. There's times where that gets a little bit out of control and I compare myself. No one is immune to any of this stuff. It's just about having the right tools in your toolbox, being able to use your resources so that you can move past this. It's part of the game of business. So, being aware of the subconscious programs that you've got on board, the subconscious programming that you have leads you to have these behaviors. So it's often a symptom of having patterns or subconscious beliefs that you've got. Maybe it's beliefs around what will happen when you do get the success you want, what will happen when you do become more busy. How will that affect you? How will that affect people around you? How will it affect you to have the money that you actually say that you want to have? There's so many deep layers and there's so many episodes and they're coming. I promise. I'm so excited to be talking about all of these on a deeper level. But just becoming aware, I think, of the things that trigger you to run patterns like this, to then find yourself in these unresourceful states. And if you have that awareness, then when you find yourself being triggered, if it's by fatigue or, something else that's going on, maybe it's stress in your personal life, whatever it is, having something else that you can run. So maybe it's you choosing a different story. So when you catch yourself after a couple of minutes or half an hour or however long it takes you to catch yourself running this story, having something else that's written. So maybe instead of, oh gosh, I'm running that story again where I, beat myself up about being further along, maybe it's your trigger to then go and actually be real with yourself and celebrate some wins. Go look at some client wins or go check in with some customers and, feel good about the good that your business is doing. The second thing is I just want you to stop being a bitch to yourself. There's no other way for me to say this, but we are, as women and as high achievers, I use the term in the Sassy CEO land as, control queens. I don't like the term freak. I think that's a very derogatory term. And there is a lot of good that comes from this style of personality, if you want to call it type A personality, high achievers, high performers, whatever you want to call it. With any type of personality, with any type of trait that we have or behavior, there is always both sides. There's a dark and a light. And I don't believe there's anything is good or bad. It's just an opportunity for us to learn. But, your ability to be driven, your ability to be ambitious, to be competitive has actually led you to be successful in business. Whether you want to run a bullshit story or not, that you think that you're not successful, that you should be further along. Ultimately, you're here, you're running your business, and those traits that you have actually helped you to get to where you are. And there's a lot of good that can come from that, but we can have incredibly high expectations of ourselves. I know personally, sometimes it can be debilitating. In the past, before I had tools and resources to be able to manage this, it's debilitating, the expectation that I used to place on myself. As a student, making myself sick over grades and, then going through adulthood and just wanting to always be top of the top. I don't know if you can relate, but it's just part of your innate drive. And I think it's something that can make you very, very successful. But obviously, if not used wisely, that energy can also take you over into a very, very dark place. And I'm only even just yesterday thinking about my calls with some of my Sassy CEO collective, and this came up again. And client was tired, in an unresourceful state, and made the comment about, I should be further along, and was really beating up on herself for being a complete bitch. And when you really looked at it, when I really asked her to take a snapshot of where she was in life, in her bank balance, in her business, in herself, compared to 12 months ago, there was no denying that she was actually much further along than she was giving herself credit for. It's just in that split second, you catch yourself going into that place. And what happens when you go into unresourceful places like that is we tend to delete and distort the real information. So we really have to, find ourselves and stop the state. And that's why I was saying, having something else to distract yourself for a moment, just so that you can change that energetic frequency that you're in, and then having something else to focus on so that you can get real about where you really are. Because chances are you are actually just being an absolute bitch to yourself. It's not necessary. So find something that can help you just catch those moments and then turn it around so that you can start to be constructive. And so, speaking of being constructive, we've talked a little bit about you asking yourself some better questions around, what it means for you, why you're running those sorts of stories, what's triggering you, is it that you're tired? Is it that something's making you emotional? So you're becoming more aware about yourself, and helping yourself to curb that desire to just bash yourself. Now I want to look at how you can take that, now that you've got to that point, take that state and insert a framework to start developing your own roadmap for moving forward. So it's always good to take stock and to really look at where you're going. And that's the first step. Where are you going? Most women I speak to, when I'm actually conducting, I do roadmap calls for real. Like, I speak to women and we map out their roadmap to accelerating and scaling their business. When I ask the question, what do you want or where you're going, 9 out of 10 women that I speak to flounder with that answer. And I think it's just, there's a lot of things there over the years. I thought, why is that? We're not really taught to be very specific. It's not a skill that we're taught, get really clear on what you want and be specific and ask for what you want, because most of us are fearful of asking for what we want. We weren't taught to ask. It was rude to ask for what you want. I know in my family it was rude to ask for what you want. In fact, little side story, my husband's family is so amazing. When I first started being part of their family, my husband would just say, what do you want for your birthday? Or what do you want for Christmas? And I was like, oh my gosh, because we weren't ever raised to do that. And it was almost liberating and refreshing to just get asked what I wanted. And it really taught me a lot around, being able to comfortably ask for what you want. And so asking for what you want, getting clear on where you're going, it might seem like a really uncomfortable concept, or maybe it's something that you do, but you don't go into deep enough depth. Can I say that? Don't go into the depth that you need, the specifics of really understanding where you're going. Because here's the thing, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have the destination, if you were getting in the car and you're asking Google Maps or Waze to take you somewhere, but you don't actually have any destination programmed in, well, it's not going to work, right? So most people don't know. We have to get specific. So this is the point where I'll ask you some questions. I'm going to make it very similar to if I was running this with you one-to-one on a call. I would ask you something like this. Amazing one. If you and I were going to talk in 12 months from now, what would you have achieved? It's 12 months, exactly 12 months from this time that you're listening to this call. Tell me what you've achieved. Everything's gone to plan. It's exactly as you imagined. Tell me about it. And I want you to be really specific. What has your business generated in revenue? What has been the profit margin? What profit do you have left over in your bank account? Because I can tell you most women are not thinking in those terms. They're just thinking, what is the business got to make? What is it got to make? What is it making? We're not thinking about the fact that we also want our business to generate a profit. You know, our business is, we're investing in it. It's an investment. We want it to actually be generating profit. So what profit has your business generated for you? You know, what are you using your wealth to invest in other things? How are you using that? What are you doing? And if you find yourself going, you know, we could be inserting some money stories here, but you know, have a go at it. You know, think about what else would you like to diversify the money that you are getting from your business. So a lot of you are so used to just being so on the edge with money that you just literally in this cycle of make money, spend the money, make the money, spend the money. That's just another subconscious pattern, right? But if you were to rise above that, if it was a higher frequency and you were to rise into the frequency of wealthy woman, what are you, you know, how are you using that money to then generate more wealth? It's okay if you're not sure, but at least, at the very least, get clear on what the business is generating and what you're paying yourself, because you should be paying yourself. And then after that, what is the business profiting after you've paid yourself and your team? So what does your team actually look like? Maybe you've got a team right now and you feel like you're just running a kindergarten, you know, like adult daycare, and you think, no, I need to streamline this team. Maybe you still are yet to start really building a team and you need to start actually planning that out. If you could wave a magic wand and have an amazing team to work with you, what does the team look like? Who is there? What sort of roles have you got? How are they helping you? Because ultimately you want to be clear on, as the business owner, what are you spending your time on? Where are you living? Who are you with? How often do you go on holidays? How often do you work? What's your day like? And here's the final question that I want you to think about. What's your happiness factor? I talk about this in the Sassy CEO programs a lot, because ultimately we want to create wealthy, confident, conscious leaders, but we want them to be happy, because I know that you are way more likely to be successful in what you want to do if you're actually already happy. So what's your happiness factor? A score out of 10. And in this moment, for this picture that you've just created, if it is not 10 out of 10, you need to go back. It must be 10 out of 10, because this is the thing. It's like where you're going. It should be like 11 out of 10. You need to have a very clear picture that is almost giving you this 11 out of 10 in the happiness factor. So once you've done that, then it's about thinking about the now, taking stock and being really truthful about where you are now. You know, asking yourself the same questions, but for now, in the last 12 months, what has the business generated? If you don't know, go and check your numbers. If you're not looking at your numbers, that might be a little clue as to why you're feeling frustrated. What has been the profit? And it's okay if that's a negative number, put it down. Be real with yourself, because we need to get real with where it's at so we can understand our true gap. You know, it's that ability to really face where things are at, to be able to move forward. You don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to beat yourself up. You just need to be able to, without emotion, take stock of where things are at so that you can move forward. Okay, so what does your team look like now? Like I said, maybe it's like, you know, or you feel like it's almost like adult daycare, or maybe you don't have a team and you're just doing everything yourself, and you know that you need to get them, but you just have no idea how you're going to do that. Just, you know, just write down, what is the team like right now? What's that like? How's that working for you? What are you spending your time on? Don't just write everything. Be really specific, because everything isn't going to get you a clarity. You know, really jot out, like, what do I spend my time on? Where are you living? Who are you with? How often do you go on holidays? And then mark out of 10 right now, what is the happiness factor for you out of 10? Be real, because when we can get real, we really get to see, you know, what's going on. And so now we've gotten really clear on the picture of where you're going. We've got those coordinates of where you're going, the coordinates of where you are now. We can really understand, you know, where the gap. So when you look at that, you can start to ask yourself and get honest, like, what is getting in your way? Why are you stuck? What is it, that you've done? Or a better question, who have you been even in the last 90 days to 12 months? Who have you been that has contributed to creating the results of the now? And who do you need to be to project into the future that you want? So we have to start, though, by getting honest with who we've been and what we've done to get us to the point that we're at. So common ones that I see all the time are women not being in the right groups or not having the right circle of influence. The people that you're spending a lot of time with actually energetically really do influence you. So if you're, spending a lot of time with people that have a lot of self-doubt or have a lot of doubt around your ability to do what it is that you want to do, maybe they're not big thinkers, maybe they just don't get you, because let's face it, I classify myself as a little bit weird. Business owners, entrepreneurs, we've got a little bit of a crazy streak. I love it, but not everyone gets us. And so making sure that you're around people that actually understand you, they understand your innate drive, they understand your dreams, they don't poo-poo all over your dreams, they instead lift you up and remind you why you can do it. That's a really important thing. So that can often be one of the reasons that's getting in your way. A lack of accountability. You've got no one to be accountable to, let alone actually having a clear plan of what you need to be accountable for. So those sorts of things can be very, very common reasons why you're stuck. Without that plan, there's a lack of consistency. You think you're doing a lot, you're probably working really hard, but ultimately most of us are spending our time working on the wrong things. So we don't actually quite know the levers to pull or the gears, like driving the car, like how do we do this in the most efficient way so that we're getting to where we want efficiently and not, using up tanks and tanks and tanks of petrol, to try and give you an analogy there. And then ultimately, again, we're in the car. Most women that I see struggling with this are really lacking that endpoint clarity. If you don't know where you're going, well, you're probably always going to wake up feeling like you should be further along, because ultimately you've never really defined where along is, where that destination is. It's just a perfect recipe for just staying stuck. And then the final one that I see, actually, that I've just remembered, is also trying to use strategies that worked for you before that maybe you've outgrown. So maybe you've reached a level of success in business, you hustled, you worked really hard, you did the long days, the long hours to get everything up and running, and you've had some success, but ultimately the strategies that you use to get to where you are now usually are not the things that are going to get you to the next level. And you in yourself have to change as a person. You actually have to grow internally. You have to grow as a leader. You have to grow in terms of your mindset, in the way that you look at your business, in order for you to move forward. So amazing questions, really, really juicy. I really encourage you to go back and ask yourself, go through that road mapping process, hit rewind and, pause, write down your answers, I would love to hear what you got out of doing your own road mapping sessions. That, if you've got any big ahas, make sure you're connecting with me on social media. We'll drop the links below, or drop me an email. I would love to hear. I answer all emails. I just want to know, what your roadmap looked like. Don't forget, you can always head over to sassiceo.com.au/gift if you want to actually maybe score your business. We've got a business scorecard over there, so you can actually check out and see how your business is scoring right now. Or if you feel like, hey, you know what, when I answer that question and I feel like maybe I'm not surrounded by the right types of people and I want to get around some really amazing high vibe women, come grab yourself a free membership at Sassy CEO Society. We've got exclusive trainings happening, there's accountability, and it's all about helping you to scale faster while keeping your happiness factor an 11 out of 10. So if you head over to sassiceo.com.au/gift, all the links are there for whatever you need. Lots of gifts and goodies and goodness and high vibe love for you to keep growing your business and staying happy, which is ultimately the name of the game. That's all I've got for you this week. I cannot wait to catch you all soon. Thank you so much for being here on this podcast with me. Looking forward to bringing you more. I've got so many ideas of what I want to bring to the show, but for now, I'm just super grateful that you're here and you're joining me. I'll catch you next week. Bye.